She would never date you.
Right.
You're not attractive enough for her. And you could see the guy's eyes just
Well, the
light up.
thought is if you actually said those things to a friend,
Yeah.
the things you say to yourself, if you actually verbalize them to your best friend that's sitting next to you or that's there in the room, it sounds horrible.
Horrible.
Like what Jared just said. Like if you're telling, like if I'm telling myself, like, oh, I'm not a good enough for him, like my past, is too much, or whatever. Would you say that to your best friend? You're not. Hi, friend. This is Annette.
This is Jared.
And welcome to our Happy Family podcast.
We're passionate about happy, healthy relationships.
And that only happens with happy, healthy people.
So join us each week as we discuss the ingredients of making your own happy family.
Thanks for joining us. Let's jump in. Hi, friend. Thank you for listening to the Happy Family podcast. Today, we're going to talk about something that is very important, and I think it's good to kind of discuss. So here we go. I'll start with a little story. And this is kind of making fun of myself in a way story.
Being negative? Yep, that's what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, but it'll make sense in a minute. So when I go out and do animal chores, which I do every day, morning and evening, sometimes just evening, it depends. I have to make sure they have their water filled, their water troughs filled. We've tried like automatic waterers and different things. I don't know. We just have to hand fill the waters. It has happened a time or two, or many more, that I forget to turn off the water. And that results in a massive flood, either in the front pasture or in the back. Or not only that, it results in like the next morning, possibly if I did this at night, I go to our kitchen and like our water pressure is slow, low. And it results in, usually, here's what happens. I don't remember to turn it off before Jared figures it out. And Jared will say, "Did you leave the water running?" Because he has discovered that there is either low water pressure or he has stumbled upon a nice new pond that I have created in our yard or wherever.
That's right.
So anytime I've done something like this, I'm always like, oh, Annette, what in the world? Why are you so special? Why can you not remember to turn the water off? I will try to tell myself. I'll try to set a reminder. Sometimes I'll even set an alarm on my phone. I still forget. And so it's one of those things where I guess I don't realize it, but I am speaking negatively to myself. Like, why can't you get it together and remember to turn the water off? Do I think it's like a big deal in terms of what I've done? Not necessarily. It's not like something terrible has happened because I left the water on, other than we're wasting water, which is not a great thing, but whatever. And so it's the thought of having this like inner critical voice that where I'm speaking negatively to myself, right? And I think it's something we all do, and maybe we don't realize we do as much as we do. Thoughts?
Bring out the data.
Thoughts. Okay, you want me to go? Okay, I'll go first. So it says that 21% of us are our own biggest critic. So we're our own biggest critic. And then the National Science Foundation has said that 80% of our thoughts are negative, which is a lot. And 95% of our thoughts are exactly the same, like from day to day as the day before. So we're like thinking the same thoughts every day. And 80%, which is what, like what's that considered? Half 80%? Is 50, so 80 is like
4 out of 5 thoughts.
Yeah, are negative.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that?
I would have told you, oh, that's strange. Feel bad for those negative thinking people. But then I went to this magical 3-day experience that we've talked about a few times.
Yeah.
And one of the exercises was identifying your inner critic, your critical inner voice. And I'm like, I don't even have one of those. My inner voice is positive. So they're like, really? You got to think
I'm like,
about it.
I thought like that too.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So mine was, they just said, what's a pattern that you hear? What's the, and so mine was, I always have this voice, I feel like, that says, is this the best use of your time? So, you imagine some man in a plaid shirt in a library with a pipe. Is this the best use of your time? Not really. That's how I visualized it. But
I feel like it is.
actually, I visualized it as me. It was
Okay.
interesting. Everybody like, what does your inner critic look like? And everybody had these different thoughts of whatever. And mine was just me.
Yeah.
And it was, hey, is this the best use of your time? Almost like looking in the mirror. And I've always thought, so glad I have this positive inner voice encouraging me to make use of my time wisely. How wonderful. So as I thought more about it, I've thought for a while that was the voice of God or providence or my conscience just guiding me to use my time wisely.
Oh, like asking, am I wasting my time in what I'm doing?
Yeah, are you wasting your time?
Okay.
Or is this the best use of your time? Good point. So that's what I thought. This was a good voice looking out for my best interest. Is this the best use of your time? But then I started to realize and kind of take inventory. Well, that's interesting. I have that question run through my brain when I'm playing with Ava. Is this the best use of your time? Maybe not. Then I have it when I'm with you. Is this the best use of your time? Then I have it when I'm doing anything. This best use, and I thought, man, that's a little.
And you
crazy.
feel like you've had this for a long time?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Is this the best use of your time? So it's been this relentless taskmaster of use your time wisely. I do think it probably stems from my dad dying in a car accident suddenly, losing some friends in other accidents suddenly. And so it's just, well, tomorrow's not guaranteed. So use your time wisely today. And I think that was the driver. Is this the best use of your time? So it was always for me like, yeah, good point. Should I be playing golf? Should I be reading a book? Should I be going to church? I mean, all the time.
So do you feel like then the problem is that in doing that, you're then not focusing or enjoying that moment?
Oh, you're trying to jump ahead.
Okay. I guess I was trying to figure out. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So through life, we're talking about your inner critical voice or inner critic. And for most people, as you just shared the data, it was negative. For me, if you'd asked me a year ago, do you have a negative inner critic? I said, no, mine is a motivational coach. Is this the best use of your time? And it only has one question. And this is the question. And it dawned on me in this wonderful weekend. That's what they should call it, the wonderful weekend. I don't think I ever have the peace of mind that I'm using my time wisely. Now, I'm sitting in a room where other people, if you could ask people, hey, what's your inner critical voice and things? And man, I heard some crazy stuff, right? Like, I'm ugly.
Yeah.
I'm dumb.
I think a lot of times it's related to physical, or for women, a lot of times I think it's related to how you look or, Yeah,
you're fat. You're whatever the thing may be. Oh, my word. And I'm like, those are negative. So I'm just in la la land here with, no, I don't have a negative inner voice. Anyway, so basically, I start to realize I'm like, but I never have satisfaction that I'm using my time wisely. And if somebody's always whispering in your ear, is this the best use of your time? Then it's almost like doubting all the time. And so I literally went in this one weekend to thinking, wow, God has been on my shoulder through life, helping me use the best use of my time, to literally feeling like I think it was the spirit of doubt whose job it was all the time to whisper something where I think I would have more easily recognized it if it was negative, to just be like, that's negative. I don't need
like a negative thought, like
negativity.
an actual negative thought.
Negativity. I don't need negativity. There's enough negativity in the world. But this one was smart. And to those who believe in another dimension, the supernatural, beings who've lived much longer than us, I started to come to the realization, boy, that would be brilliant if there's literally a spirit of doubt. It's just chased me through life and masqueraded himself as someone trying to hold me accountable to use my time wisely.
What's interesting, real quick, I'm going to say, is that a lot of times I think if you believe in like good and evil and a devil and God, the devil a lot of times presents, like in the Garden of Eden, the story is he told Eve, this fruit, no, this fruit is good. You should eat this. Even though God said it wasn't, it's a good thing. So things are usually disguised as good when they're bad.
Yeah,
That's what's
it's
interesting.
fascinating. So yeah, through this weekend, it wasn't, it wasn't focused on that idea of where is it coming from, but I started to realize like this is just a negative spirit.
Hmm.
This is negative. This is bad. If you can never feel like, and I'm talking to myself, if I could never feel like I was using my time wisely, then there was this insatiable feeling of, I don't know. I don't know if I ever use my time wisely. So I just hustle and go and go and go and go and go.
Mm-hmm.
And so this was liberating for me. So for me, not to jump too far ahead, and I think what we're going to talk about, but for me, it was the idea of what do you do then if that is your negative inner voice?
Mm-hmm.
And boy, that's what I loved about that weekend. Like you get time to think about this.
Sure.
And so for me, I thought through, I'm like, okay, if that's the thing that's peppering me all the time, what is the only way that I could squelch that? Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I can share more on that in a minute. But I think for some people, you would never talk to someone. Like I would never go around to others, even with my quote unquote positive
Mm-hmm.
of Annette, I know you're gardening right now. Is this the best use of your time?
Mm-hmm.
And even say it in the nicest way. Hey, Ava, I know you're coloring, but is that the best use of your time?
Yeah.
You would continually throw the world off. Maybe not. Right?
Yeah. Am I?
Am I? I don't know. So obviously mine, people may be thinking, oh, you should hear mine. You're dumb.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm going to share mine in just a second, but you saying that just made me think of something. We spoke recently at the college we both attended and graduated from, and we went back for like a group, I don't know, they call it convocation. What do you call that? Like a student
Assembly.
assembly type thing. And we touched on some of this, the inner critic and that sort of thing. Cause I feel like in college, I mean, can you imagine that time of life? Like, wow.
And with social media now.
It's
Wow.
just like the amount of negativity and thoughts surrounding self, the amount of like self-harm. I mean, there's a lot of very deep, dark things that happen when you speak negatively to yourself. So Jared wanted to make an example and just ask like, hey, like what are, negative things you maybe say to yourself or different things? And it was interesting because speaking to a group of 18 to 22-year-olds, and Jared, said some things out loud that let's say are the things we would say to her, so to ourselves. But
She would never date you.
Right.
You're not attractive enough for her. And then you could see the guy's eyes just
Well, the
light
thought
up.
is if you actually said those things to a friend,
Yeah.
the things you say to yourself, if you actually verbalize them to your best friend that's sitting next to you or that's there in the room, it sounds horrible.
Horrible.
Like what Jared just said. Like if you're telling, like if I'm telling myself, like, oh, I'm not a good enough for him, like my past, is too much, or whatever. Would you say that to your best friend? You're not good enough for him. Like your past is too much. He's not going to love you. Like all these things, and it's just amazing to think that's how we talk to ourselves. And if 80% of our thoughts are negative, then where do you leave space?
Mm-hmm.
In your day for any sort of positive reinforcement to yourself or affirmation or whatever. We're not doing that. And we've talked about social media. We talked about like dopamine, the effects of like our phones and how, all these things. And it's the thought of like, man, it's just if you're constantly giving yourself negative thoughts. Anyways, it was very interesting in a group of young people when we saw their reaction to, is this how you would speak to your, friend? No, absolutely not. So why do you speak like that to yourself?
Yeah.
Right?
And that shows you the power of friends speaking life into your life. Be positive with people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mine, so when I did this weekend activity, I went to this same weekend that Jared went to. I went a few months after he did. And I will say I was probably on the same boat. I don't speak negatively to myself. Like, I'm fine, fine, you know? But when you really unpack and start thinking of things, it's like, okay, I guess for me, it's not, I don't feel like I hear, this voice, or I have this thing that's telling me something, most really in honesty and most of the time. But I felt for me, it's, am I doing enough? And I always feel like, am I doing enough? As a mom is probably my main thing. Am I doing enough as a mom? And then the stress that surrounds that of, there's too many things going on, so I feel like I'm stressed, so I'm not doing enough, was kind of my thought. It's
Mhm.
kind of what I compiled. That I feel like, to an extent, every day I'm like, oh, maybe I should have, should I have done this today? Should I have done this for her? Did I do enough for her in this area? She's 5 years old now. Um, have I done enough the last 5 years to get her to where she needs to be in life? That sort of thing. And that's hard. And I think for women, especially if you're a mom, or have just a lot of responsibility. I have my parents that I feel like I have to do a lot of things for. And it's this constant, am I doing enough? And so it was interesting to really like sit down and focus, like, okay, I probably do have thoughts that aren't super positive all the time. What do I do about that? Like, how do I help myself do that? And I think it's the thought of, like, if you are thinking these negative thoughts, they turn into real feelings, right? And feelings affect our health.
Yeah, well, definitely that. Yeah, they do affect our health.
I
Absolutely.
mean,
And eventually our behavior.
well, yeah. So if you're feeling, well, even like stress, for example, like the amount of cortisol, like it's really bad to be stressed or have these feelings of stress, right? So you have these feelings, which then, if you do this constantly, it becomes like a habit. It's just what you do, right? Like a cycle, I guess. We probably put ourselves into this cycle, which is why that statistic said 95%, right? Is what I read, of your thoughts of are the same as the day before, because we're in this like cycle.
That's right.
Um,
And then I would just add
yeah.
the other inputs that we're putting into our lives, like, boy, some of the stuff I've been reading about the food we're putting into our bodies and how it affects our mood and our sleep, just particularly processed foods. Like,
Sure.
they make us depressed.
Yeah.
Dead,
Well, it's
old food.
chemicals too.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, I love what Gary Brecka, boy, I was listening to a podcast with him and Jay Shetty, and he basically was saying, your body is a temple, and you need to ask whoever or whatever is entering your temple, are you here to serve me or steal from me?
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
I'm like,
If
man,
only we really did that.
imagine this glorious temple and like a doorkeeper, and you just ask the question, are you here to serve or steal?
Mm,
And so food is a huge one.
mm.
But I think also the media, things we consume, like, is it making your life better or worse?
I'll say something about that with social media, with and the negative thinking and all of that. If you come across something on social media or someone that you follow, and every time you see it, it doesn't make you feel better, you should unfollow. And it might not be for the right reasons. Like, it might be you feel it's competitive, or oh, they're doing this, or I'm not doing as much as they are, or oh, maybe I should post more because they post more. If if any of those are those feelings on top of just the feelings you get in general from social media, if it's like a very specific someone or a specific account, you should block it or unfollow, because it's not helping you.
No,
And honestly, like, it's not worth your mental health.
that's right.
Um, yeah.
So yours was, am I doing enough?
Yeah, like, am I doing enough? Yeah.
All right, so slip us into what was your process to say, all right, how would I prevent that voice from having any rationale?
I mean, I think what's weird is, for me, it's had to be in the moment, because I think you can't always prevent having the thoughts. The thoughts are going to happen
Mhm.
sometimes. So I think it's how you choose to react to those thoughts. So I feel like, because maybe I am more aware now that that is something that I think of and that causes me stress. I've tried to be better at saying like, okay, am I doing enough? And telling myself like the affirmation of, no, obviously you are doing enough. Like your child is safe, your child is happy. You've done, all the things that you need to be doing. And if if it's not, sometimes I think setting actionable goals for myself and not like unrealistic expectations is important as well. So instead of maybe putting down 15 things I want to accomplish the next day, really sitting down the day before and thinking, what do I want to accomplish tomorrow? What is actually feasible for
Mm-hmm.
me? And like scaling down. For me, it's not setting too lofty of standards for myself because then I get upset if I don't meet them because then I'm like, oh, I didn't do everything. See, so I'm not doing all the things I wanted to. I'm not doing enough here. I'm not doing enough there. I don't know. So it's tricky. It's a day by day thing.
Did you ever ask yourself through that process, what is enough? What does enough look like?
I mean, I feel like it varies for me.
From day to day? Or
Yeah.
so tomorrow enough would look like this, wherefore today
Yeah. It
looks like
depends on
this.
the day of the week. Depends on, here on the farm or different things. There's a lot that changes depending on time of year, depending on
That's
the
interesting.
things. So, yeah.
I could see ours being a little similar. So mine was, if my question is always, is this the best use of your time? I thought, well, there's only one way to solve this. To audit how I use my time.
Yeah.
And I realized, well, how would you do that? Oh, you do that with a calendar. And so for me, it was like, I'm just going to become a master of my calendar.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to plan my life so that if that question is asked, is this the best use of your time? I can say, well, let me see how I use my time. Or not so much that. I've planned how to use my days, my weeks, my months. I plan my life. It's not just, oh, what's going to happen tomorrow? Obviously, there's flexibility in that. But for
Mm-hmm.
me, then it was, I'm being intentional about what tomorrow looks like.
Mm.
When am
So
I going to play with Ava? I'm going to play with you. Like, you have to plan this. This doesn't just happen.
yeah, and
Where am I going to work out?
yeah. No, it doesn't just happen. And I think that does help. And we've talked about this in different episodes. I think the beginning of the year we talked about goals and setting goals and like doing all these different things. I do think the busier you are in life, whether that means, you know, you've got children, you're running a house, you've got a business, whatever it means in terms of busy, the busier you are, the more like scheduled you should be because it'll help you from flailing. And I think for me, that's been really hard because I never did, I was never very scheduled in a lot of ways. And so being having that more at this point in my life has been an adjustment, I think,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm still figuring out to a degree. I transitioned from having like a very all over the place schedule with work. I used to work as a nurse to being at home. And so now figuring out like, oh, what do we do during the week? There's just different things. But I think holding yourself accountable and just being like authentic to yourself, being true to yourself is so important. What is it, I want? What's most important to me? What are my what are my values? And leaning into those and just anything else just has to take a minute,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
I think for many people, they don't put their own health 1st.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing else is going to happen in life if you don't put your health first. And for me, it was, if you don't put your health on your calendar, like, how are you taking care of your health? Please explain that to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just going to fill in the cracks after meetings or whatever it may be. You have to intentionally, I'm going to be healthy for a very long time, and I'm going to build my life around that.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, it makes all
But
the difference in the
intentional,
world.
and I think that's the thing. You have to be intentional. So when it comes to negative thoughts, you have to be like intentional and purposeful in telling yourself, this is how I'm going to speak to myself when I have these negative thoughts. This is how I'm going to, plan my life every day so that I can maybe not have, and maybe if your negative thoughts have to do with how you look or how you feel, then taking your health into, like making health priority is important. Or
Mm-hmm.
if it has to do with maybe, oh, I'm always late, I'm never on, all these things, then maybe you can help your schedule out so that you don't have to feel that way.
Right.
I think we have the power to change a lot of those things, and we can just flip the narrative to where our thoughts don't have to be 80% negative thoughts. I think, speaking truth. I think if you believe in the Bible and all those things, there's lots of encouraging verses and things that you can read that can be uplifting. There's just a lot of different things where I think it's good to focus on that.
Or the
I think
world will eat you alive.
Yeah, and I think what I'm saying is I think it's good to, at least for me personally, yes, I have some of these thoughts. Yes, I do. But I always try. I like to have the cup is half full versus half empty mentality. If you try to be positive so that when, the storms come and things happen and there is the negativity, you can hopefully rise above that and not let it take you down.
I think another thing is having some positive friends in your life, and you can say, "Hey, do you think I'm ugly?" And your friend's, of course, not going to say you're ugly.
Yeah.
No, you're not ugly. What?
Well, you do need a good circle.
Like 1 out of a million people is ugly. Like, give me a break. Like,
you're hilarious.
Get a friend to tell you some positive things.
Yeah.
Like,
well, you just need.
Do you think I'm doing
support.
enough? Do you then listen to your friends. Listen to those who care about you, and stop listening to a negative inner critic in your own voice or in your own head that isn't based in reality.
Yeah. I actually think for a lot of time for women, they say, there you can watch like some of these things where women will say, I think I look ugly, or all these things. I feel bad about myself. And they have guys give their reaction on what they feel this person looks like. And it's always super positive.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the coolest, it was a commercial. Was it for Dove? Who was the commercial where they had a
was it the sisters?
No, it's a sketch artist, like forensic sketch artist came in and had the person describe themselves to him. And he drew them. And whenever the person described themselves, the drawing he made was a very sad drawing. Like usually the eyes were turned down. The person looked like them, but it looked like a very sad version of them. Then they had the best friend come in, or just someone they had randomly just met when they were like in the meeting room together. And they had that person describe to the forensic artist what that person looked like. And it was incredible.
That's awesome.
If you Google it, I feel like it was Dove. It was some brand that did this. The people looked completely different because we are always our own worst critic of how, we are, how we look, how we feel. To other people, we're doing a good job. We're
That's
okay.
Awesome.
We're wonderful. So yeah, it's very cool.
That's cool.
Yeah, inner critic. I'd be curious if anyone has thoughts on what yours are and what you do for it, because I think we can all help each other out. But hopefully, we can learn to rise above that and speak positively to ourselves. So I will do that.
Yep.
Next time I leave the water on. All right. Thank you for listening. You can look at the show notes for all the links that you need, and we will be back next time. Thank you.